I'm Eva Langford, 34 years old, and for the past 10 years, I've built a cybersecurity firm, Langford Secure Systems, that now operates across 4 continents. But in that moment, none of my success mattered. Because the house they just sold wasn't just any property, it was the home I'd poured my savings into, the one I thought was mine. We accepted a very generous offer, my mother's email read, her tone practically glowing through the screen. Much better than whatever down payment you contributed. The paperwork is signed. It's a done deal. I sat frozen in my hotel suite, overlooking the Spree River, as the reality sank in. 5 years of mortgage payments, taxes, and repairs gone. And why? Because my parents had insisted on keeping the deed in their name. Just until your business stabilizes, they'd said. It was supposed to be a formality, a gesture of trust. They sold it while I was overseas, without telling me. I left the meeting room, muttering apologies in German to the bewildered EU officials. In the corridor, beneath a Bauhaus-style skylight, I called home. My mother picked up, her voice syrupy as ever. "Oh, Eva, did you get the news? Isn't it wonderful? We finally sold that old place." "That old place was my home," I said, keeping my voice measured. "You're being overdramatic," she sighed. "You were never there, always off somewhere in Europe or Asia with your tech thing." My tech thing. If only she understood. "We needed the funds," she continued. "Langford Innovations has had a rough quarter. Your father and Michael are doing all they can, but..." My brother Michael, their golden child, had been appointed CTO without ever building a single line of code. And now, apparently, their financial crisis was reason enough to cash out what I had worked for. "And where exactly do you expect me to stay when I return?" I asked coldly. "Well," she said brightly, "your old room's still there, just like when you were in high school. We even kept your trophies on the shelf." I nearly laughed. That room had been a shrine to their expectations, one I had tried to escape my entire adult life. "I have to go," I said, already ending the call. Back inside the conference room, I straightened my jacket and returned to the negotiating table. On the screen behind me was the final clause: Langford Secure Systems acquisition of Morris Tech, the very company my parents were trying to save. No one at that table knew yet that I'd be their new CEO, not even my family. The irony? They sold my house behind my back to save a company that now reports directly to me. While my parents were selling my house to save their failing tech company, I was here in Berlin, quietly orchestrating the most calculated corporate takeover of my life. You see, Langford Innovations, my parents' legacy, wasn't just struggling, it was sinking, and I knew exactly why. Over the past 12 months, under the banner of anonymous shell firms and silent investors, I had been methodically purchasing their outstanding debt, piece by piece. I had leveraged every missed payment, every desperate loan, and every risky vendor extension, all while they believed I was off managing my little cybersecurity thing. In truth, I was the founder and CEO of Langford Secure Systems, one of the most aggressive cyber consulting and acquisition firms in Europe. We didn't just protect systems, we acquired the broken ones. We rebuilt or dismantled depending on the value. My phone vibrated. A message from Michael. "Heard about the house. Sorry, Eva, but you know how it is. Business is business." Business is business. That phrase had followed me like a curse. It was their excuse for pulling my college fund to float the company, their reason for borrowing from my savings without consent, their justification for every betrayal dressed in spreadsheets and ROI. I typed back only 2 letters. Then I turned to Herr Newman, my legal counsel and partner in the acquisition. "Are the contracts finalized?" I asked in flawless German. He pushed the file across the polished glass table. "Everything is ready, Frau Langford. By next month, you will hold full controlling interest in Langford Innovations." I signed. Each stroke of my pen etched a chapter of poetic justice. This wasn't just about business. It was about reclaiming everything they took, from my financial independence to my dignity, and now even my home. The irony was rich. The sale of my house helped fund their company's last gasp which I now own. I turned to my assistant. Book my flight to London, it's time to visit the family. The next 3 weeks flew by in a blur. NDAs, restructuring meetings, rebranding plans. I took a suite at the Corinthia, declining every call and message from my mother. Let them think I was licking my wounds. Let them believe their betrayal had silenced me. They had no idea I was planning my arrival. The morning of the board meeting, I stood in front of the mirror. My tailored navy blazer hugged my shoulders, my heels sharp enough to cut glass. I didn't see their daughter anymore. I saw their reckoning. With my briefcase in hand, I arrived at the headquarters of Langford Innovations. The security guard, an older man who used to greet me with "Little Langford," looked up from his desk. He blinked. "Miss Eva?" I smiled politely. "Mrs. Langford, I'm here for the board meeting." He buzzed me in. It was time. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or quietly preparing your own comeback, hit subscribe. Because in the next chapter, they won't just see Eva walk into the boardroom, they'll watch her take the seat at the head of the table. He was already on Langford Secure Systems payroll. Like many of the senior engineers and analysts my parents still believed were loyal to them. The elevator to the executive suite moved slowly, each floor bringing me closer to the moment I had waited for my entire adult life. Every ding of the passing floors echoed with memories. The scholarships I applied for because they wouldn't help with tuition, the hours I spent coding late into the night while they laughed at that little tech phase, the betrayal of selling the home I paid for because their company needed it. The elevator doors opened. I stepped onto the top floor of Langford Innovations. My mother's laugh echoed down the hallway, light, practiced, oblivious. She was probably seated in the boardroom, where the directors were gathering to discuss the anonymous entity that had just become the majority shareholder. I paused, inhaled deeply, and smoothed the front of my blazer. It was time they met the real Eva Langford. As I approached, I could hear the tension behind the frosted glass door. My father's voice, still laced with entitlement. "This is a mistake. Some faceless corporation doesn't get to just take Langford Innovations. We built this." Michael's voice followed, nervous and clipped. "Dad, I checked the filings myself. Langsec Holdings now owns 52% of the company. They've absorbed our debt. The CEO's scheduled to meet us this morning." My mother's voice rang with forced cheer. "Whoever it is, we'll work it out. We always do." I chose that moment to open the door. Every board member turned to look at me. My father's expression twisted immediately into irritation. "Eva, this meeting's confidential. Whatever issue you have with the house, we'll discuss later." I set my briefcase calmly on the table. "Actually, I'm right on time. You're meeting the CEO of Langsec Holdings at 10 a.m., aren't you?" Michael blinked at his watch. "Yes, but they're not here." I met his eyes and gave a small smile. "Actually, she is. I'm here." I opened the briefcase and slid out the signed contracts, laying them in front of the stunned board. "I'm the CEO of Langford Secure Systems. We acquired all controlling interest in Langford Innovations." Silence. Then, crash. My mother's champagne flute shattered on the floor. My father's face drained of color. Michael's mouth opened, closed, then stammered. You run some tiny security firm? You're not. You can't be." "Can't be what, Michael?" I said quietly. "Competent? Strategic? Worth more than a dinner guest?" I looked him dead in the eye. "You didn't see me coming because you never looked. But I'm here, and I own your company." My father reached for the documents with shaking hands. This can't be real. This is a joke." "No, Dad," I said, "this is business, and you taught me that." "It has to be a joke," my father said again, clutching the contract with white knuckles. "Like the joke of selling my house while I was overseas?" I replied calmly. "Or the joke of raiding my college fund without asking? Or maybe the best one, spending the last decade telling everyone I was a failure while I was quietly building a global empire." "We needed that money for the company," my mother whispered, her voice fragile. I turned to her. "You mean your legacy?" Then I laughed, not bitter, just honest. "Look around, Mom. Your legacy is now my company. Langford Secure Systems specializes in restructuring failing businesses. And Langford Innovations? It's been failing for years. You just refused to see it. You can't do this to us. My father's voice cracked. We're your parents. I tilted my head, quoting the words they'd used so many times to justify cutting me out of everything that mattered. Business is business, isn't that what you always said? I turned to the board. Several directors looked away, but I could see the relief in their eyes. They had endured years of arrogance, short-sighted deals, and nepotism. As of today, there will be changes, I said clearly. Michael, you're no longer CFO. Dead. You're stepping down as CEO. Mom, your position as VP of Public Relations is terminated. Michael stared like he'd been slapped. You're firing us? Your own family? I thought of all the moments I had been excluded, mocked, sacrificed for their company. The scholarships I applied for on my own. The nights I went without sleep while building a cybersecurity firm they couldn't even name. No, I said coolly. I'm not firing you. I'm offering you the same thing you gave me, a chance to earn your place. I held their gazes, one by one. Michael, there's an entry-level accounting position available. Dad, we could use someone in regional sales. And Mom, I believe the front desk is short-staffed. That broke her. My mother let out a sob, collapsing into her chair. My father's face flushed purple, then pale. You ungrateful. Careful, Dad, I interrupted sharply. Remember who you're talking to. I'm not your little girl anymore, I'm your boss. I gathered the remaining documents and walked to the door. Then I turned back, just once. Oh, and about my house, the one you sold? I smiled. I bought the holding company that purchased it. The new deed will be in my name by tomorrow. The stunned silence was better than applause. Years of being belittled, overlooked, quietly surviving while they fed their egos, every insult, every exclusion, had led to this. I looked back at the board. The meeting resumes tomorrow at 9 a.m. Don't be late. I gave one final glance to my family. Well, those of you who still have jobs. Then I turned and walked out, finally, on my terms. As I walked out, my heels echoing against the marble floor of Langford Innovations, I didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear my mother's muffled sobs, my father's angry shouting, and Michael's stunned silence. But for the first time in my life, none of it pierced me. Their disappointment used to hang on me like chains. Now, their reactions were just background noise in a story they no longer controlled. I had built something they refused to even acknowledge, an empire founded on precision, strategy, and silent resolve. And I hadn't just succeeded, I had outmaneuvered them, outgrown them, outclassed them. My phone buzzed as I stepped into the elevator. Tanaka-san, omedetou to Langford-san, how did it go? I smiled and typed back, better than expected. The elevator doors closed in front of me, not just on a boardroom, but on an entire past life, the one where I was the forgotten daughter, the backup plan, the Langford with no voice. Now, I was the Langford with the final say. It was time to rebuild this company from the ashes of their pride. They had chosen the business over me for years. Now they could sit in the cheap seats while I transformed it into something they were never capable of building themselves. Because the most satisfying revenge isn't loud. It isn't cruel. It's elegant, strategic, inevitable. And it looks a lot like success. Outside, the wind carried the scent of fresh rain through the London air. I paused on the steps of Langford Innovations and looked up at the carved stone name above the entrance. I'd be changing that soon. The next morning, I arrived early. Too early for anyone else to beat me to my new office. My father's old corner suite was now mine. I slid into the leather chair, the city skyline rising behind me, and flipped open the morning paper. There it was, front page of the Financial Herald. Langford Innovations acquired in surprise takeover. Unknown CEO reveals identity at board meeting. Unknown CEO. If only they knew. If only they knew how many nights I'd spent perfecting acquisition strategy while the world thought I was traveling. If only they knew how many doors I opened while pretending to be invisible. If only they knew the version of me they laughed at had been documenting every weakness in their foundation. Being underestimated is a superpower, one that gives you space to move in silence. I picked up the office phone and dialed a familiar number. Langford Realty, came the receptionist's voice. Hi, I said, a hint of amusement in my tone. I'd like to put a property back on the market, the house at 317 Waverly Hill Road. A pause. But that property just sold last month. I know, I bought it. Another pause. Don't worry, I said, smiling. Just list it. The previous owners won't be needing it anymore. Sometimes karma looks like poetic justice. Sometimes she comes dressed in black pumps and a power suit. Sometimes she shows up as the daughter you didn't believe in, signing your severance paperwork and rebranding the company you used to run. I leaned back in my chair, eyes drifting out the window. They wanted to build a legacy. Now they can watch mine unfold, every morning, in the headlines they never expected to read. If you've ever felt like the black sheep, the one overlooked, underestimated, or labeled a disappointment, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell me what part of this story hit home for you. Because no matter where you are in your journey, you're not alone. I was once the silent daughter in the background, the one they talked over, dismissed, and quietly stepped around, and for a long time I let that define me. I stopped asking for space and started building my own. If you're in that phase where you're grinding in silence, carrying resentment like a shadow, know this. That energy can become your power. Channel it. Don't waste time proving yourself to people who've already made up their minds. Instead, become so grounded in who you are that when your moment comes, you won't need to explain a thing. You'll just walk into the room and own it. And if you're still finding your voice, keep going. You're sharpening, you're learning, you're preparing. And when your time comes, when you finally take that seat at the table, you'll do it with the grace of someone who earned every inch of that moment. So leave a message for me below. Advice, support, or maybe the moment you realized you deserved more. And if this story reminded you of your own strength, hit subscribe. Not just for me, but for every quiet fighter out there turning their pain into purpose. We don't need permission. We don't need applause. We just need one moment to rise. And when we do, we rise for good. Eva Langford.